Is ready with their coffee, waiting to hear what I'm sure will be a very interesting insight today. I'm assuming that most of us here either have adolescent kids or are about to have them or getting ready. So I'm sure that we will hopefully learn a few things that we can introduce into our families. So, a very good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. Welcome back to those of you that are joining us yet again, and welcome to some of our newcomers. It's lovely to see you here again and to welcome you to today, which is actually our final webinar in our current series, where of course we've been looking at the various aspects of our well-being. We've had the opportunity to look at our physical well-being. We've had a little look at setting our fitness goals, our nutrition. We've also had a look at how we can alleviate some of the financial stress by perhaps knowing how to do some of our personal budgeting. And of course, last week we started to have a little look at our more kind of emotional and social well-being. We addressed the homework balance, and we also heard about what is optimism. And of course, there we looked at how with a different way of looking at things, so we can often really help ourselves and our well-being. And of course, for our last topic today, we're going to be having a look at raising adolescents, and a lovely title that our presenter chose, which I liked: transforming conflict into opportunities to connect. Conflict, of course, is part of the territory, so we need to find the ways how we can use that to connect with people and our teenagers. So for any newcomers who don't know me, my name is Sophie Kiriakou, and also we're here with us today, we have Joanna Vrioni.
Hello everyone.
And of course, we're part of the team here at the EIMF, where we work with mainly with professionals, although of course in the last month we've been working with people of not just professionals, but everybody, those of you at home, those of you across the world, across the globe. But most of you will know us, of course, for our expertise in providing professional training, preparation course for professional exams, training in our what I call our softer skills, looking how we manage our people, how we use emotional intelligence to better manage our teams, and generally how we can improve our effectiveness in the workplace. We do have a strong specialization on topics like financial regulation, banking sector, legal, accounting, just to mention a few of the areas of expertise. Our courses are delivered in many ways and forms. Of course, in the last year and a half, we've worked mainly through live online. We do e-learning, and hopefully soon we will be able to come back to our classrooms. Those of you that do know us, you will know that we're kind of very strong believers in learning and development. So we're here not only to provide our courses, but also to provide you with some advice. Perhaps you need some direction. We work with school leavers, college leavers, to just kind of provide some assistance in helping them make some choices for their future. So please do feel free to get in touch with us at any moment in time if you need to. Now, before looking at our topic for today, a quick mention that, of course, we want to answer your questions today. If you have got questions, we can address them as we go along. We can address them at the end through the Q&A section. You can use the hand at any moment in time during the presentation, and we will see you and allow you to speak. So think of your questions, put them down, and we will address them at some moment in time. As I said at the beginning, we are, I think, quite a few of us very eager to hear insights today. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce today's presenter, who is Professor Andreas Anastasiou. Having gained his PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Pittsburgh in the USA, Andreas actually remained in the US for a number of years, gaining invaluable experience. And later he joined Mary Baldwin University as an associate professor. Since returning to Cyprus about 10 years ago, I think Andreas came back. He has been an associate professor of psychology at the University of Nicosia, where he also served as chair of the social sciences department and has also served as board member of the Cyprus Psychological Association. In addition, in parallel, should I say, Andrea works with individuals very much like ourselves, like our family members, helping them with all aspects of their lives through counselling and advising. So today, without any further ado, I'm going to move on to Andreas to hear what he has. Andrea, welcome, and let's hear what you have to share with us today.
Thank you, Sophie, for your introduction. Hi, everyone. It's great for me to be here. I'm going to share some of my experiences as a psychologist, where and in this presentation, I'm going to integrate theory, research, and practice, because a lot of the things that I'm going to present to you today are also based on my experience as a psychologist talking to parents as well as adolescents. One thing that is always very interesting is that with kids or adolescents, I always first want to see the parents. And when the parents come, the overwhelming majority of times, the intervention is actually done on the parental level, not necessarily the kids. My approach is also a little bit like a systemic approach, in the sense that I want to first see the parents to make sure that the environment where development takes place is a healthy one. Sometimes parents will, bring me their kids thinking that my responsibility is now absolved because now you are going to take care of my kid. Well, not necessarily. And I always joke with them and I always tell them, part of my job is to actually make life a bit more difficult for you. So let's see a little bit today, and today we will just be scratching the surface. What does it mean raising adolescents? The term adolescence was coined by G. Stanley Hall in 1904 when he wrote a book entitled Adolescence. And because of socio-historical events, adolescence became a very distinct period in someone's life. And we typically see it as a time of, the hormones raging, as a time of storm and stress that is associated with, that can be associated rather with a tumultuous time. Now, we need to bring adolescents today, and today adolescents are going through some very time-specific challenges, as well as parents. And as a parent of two 11-and-a-half-year-olds, two twin boys, I'm getting ready, or my wife and I are getting ready for adolescence, and I don't think that my training in psychology has prepared us enough to handle the challenges, because each challenge is actually different. Now, let's start with the purpose of parenting. What's our purpose? Prepare children for independence, to be happy, and to be ready. Oh, sorry, I misspelled that. To be ready to leave the family nest with roots. It's this idea of roots and wings. Yeah, we want our kids to be ready and look forward to leaving the home. But in adolescent psychology, we always talk about roots and wings. It's the idea that I have such secure roots with my parents, okay, in my home, that physical and emotional environment, my roots are so deep that allow me to freely fly away from my home and have a good time and explore my identity, and then always want to come back with a great deal of nostalgia. Okay, so that's one of the purposes of parents, to establish roots and wings. Also, who they are as adolescents will not necessarily be who they will be as adults, will not reflect necessarily who they will be as adults. Okay, another very important point to make. And also something that is very important is do not focus on the small stuff and lose track of the bigger picture and purpose. Okay, one mistake that we tend to make as parents all the time, I mean, you can make a list, especially for those of us who are parents of kids who are about to become adolescents or adolescents. We can make a list of all the things we keep telling them all the time. You need to do this, you need to do that, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Oh my God, it's a long list. Well, I mean, we might get lost in that list. Okay, and what happens is that we focus so much on the small stuff, and kids and adolescents can be overwhelmed by the sheer number of things they have in their mind that they have to do. The way that we interpret that is that, oh, they're ignoring us, they're not listening to us. Not necessarily. Okay, let's look at the bigger picture. Okay, and our purpose. Let's not lose track of that. Now, consequence of parenting styles, and later on we're going to talk in greater detail about parenting styles. Number one, parents must be predictable. In other words, our kids must not wonder about us. There has to be that positive predictability. They must not wonder how we're going to respond to them. And of course, I'm talking about being positive. Okay, I mean, because you can have parents that are predictably unpredictable, and we don't want that. Okay, we want parenting to be very predictable. We don't want anyone to wonder about us. Whenever we have a relationship where we wonder how the other person feels, thinks, and acts, it's extremely toxic and stressful for the relationship. And it is not just about parents. It's about, in general, all the relationships that we have, romantic relationships. Whenever we wonder about how or how he or she thinks and feels and behaves, it's extremely toxic. So we want to be very predictable to our kids. I said to my students at the university, I want to be predictable. I don't want you to wonder about me, how I'm going to respond to you. Okay. Now, being predictable doesn't mean boring. It doesn't mean that you cannot also be spontaneous. Okay. They are not mutually exclusive. We must communicate to our kids that we are on the same team. Sorry, I have some typos. We have to communicate to our kids that we are on the same team. Okay, they must not perceive us as being adversarial, as being the ones who always say no. Okay, and what is very important is to avoid lecturing them. Whenever we get into lecture mode, communication breaks down. Okay, whenever we give those pep talks, communication breaks down. I mean, imagine someone who comes and always wants to tell you, to give you a pep talk, to lecture you. Okay, immediately we get into a defensive mode. Okay, the challenge for us parents is not necessarily to lecture our kids, but to actually listen to our kids. That constructs the context within which to express how we feel to our kids. Okay, when we lecture them, although the spirit with which we do it might be a very positive, a very good, a very loving one, it's actually ineffective. Okay. Now, common challenges of today's adolescents. Okay, self-esteem and body image. Okay, very, very, very big. Okay, how do I feel about myself? Okay, what research shows is that when children reach adolescence, the experience of all the body changes that take place is much more positive for boys than girls. Okay, because boys will begin to lose baby fats, and they will now begin to have muscle. Okay, and wow, they feel very, very good about it. There's a great Norman Rockwell painting depicting this little boy who has just become an adolescent, and he's holding these small weights, and he's admiring himself in the mirror. Okay, girls, on the other hand, they tend to be much more conscious of the physical changes, because baby fat is replaced by female fat. Let's put it this way. Okay, and it's almost like they're moving away from what is culturally ideal. One thing that is very important is not to is the way that we talk about our body and about food and home. Okay, it's very important to talk about health, being healthy and being essentially being healthy, eating healthy, exercise. Okay, as opposed to you know what, you need to be careful, you're putting on weight. Or even worse, oh my God, I need to diet. I feel like I'm gonna put on weight. Okay, this is extremely ineffective and a great way to lower someone's self-esteem, and by focusing on the body image. The other thing that happens during adolescence is a period that's called adolescent ecocentrism, and it's manifested in two ways. One is what's called the personal fable, the idea that no one understands me, I'm all alone in this world. And number two, the imaginary audience, feeling that they are the center of attention, and they become very, very self-conscious of who's around them. The other day, I went and my 11-and-a-half-year-old son was playing with his friends, and I always like to go and joke with his friends and tease them and even teach them some games I used to play when I was a kid. And the other day when I went out, my son was looking at me, he was saying, it's like, okay. So I left immediately, okay, which is pretty normal, okay. And then we laugh about it. But and then my wife was telling me, hey, you need to let him do his thing, develop his own. I said, oh, I know, but I also like to have fun with it. So but it's the idea that they are very self-conscious about their appearance and about who's around them, and they also tend to see their parents in very idealistic ways, and in some ways as parents are not good enough, okay, one way or the other. So these are some issues. Another issue is stress and anxiety disorders. Unfortunately, we are now in a position where we are talking about diagnosable anxiety disorders, even in elementary school kids. Today, I got a call by a mom talking to me about her 7-year-old daughter, 7 years old, who's having panic attacks because of exams in school, in her school. Okay, that is unacceptable. Okay, and yeah, unfortunately, I think schools today have become anxiety factories, and kids and adolescents, because of all that anxiety, the way that they study is not I'm studying because I want to feel good, doing well, but rather I am studying because I want to avoid failure. And the spirit with which we study is very, very different. So unfortunately, today we are talking about diagnosable anxiety disorders for kids and adolescents. The source, parents. The parental relationship, and later on we're going to talk about the parental relationship, can be a major source of anxiety for kids. If they see, for example, their parents fighting all the time, if there is violence in the family, which unfortunately is very, very common. Another presentation that I can give Sophie at some point in the future, will be very happy to, is on the battered woman's syndrome. Okay, what research shows is that 1 in 3 women are victims of home violence, and that's a reported figure. Okay. So it's extremely stressful for kids to grow up in an environment in the family in which there is violence. Anxiety coming from school, okay, starting at a very young age. Homework that the kids have to do, okay. Personally, I'm a bit against homework. I think homework is something that needs to come much, 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 much later. I am also a proponent of doing homework at school and getting the parents out of doing homework. Okay, because one thing that happens all the time is that because parents are very stressed out about their kids' homework, they make their kids responsible. They give their kids the responsibility of alleviating their anxiety by doing their homework. Okay, and there is that constant tug of war, which I think is very, very toxic. Okay. And also schools, I think, need to become much more student-centered as opposed to test-centered. Okay, and I think we need to look at education from a completely different perspective. We need to focus a lot more on training teachers on the teacher-student relationship, which is a sacred relationship, and make that the context within which to learn. Okay, and the focus, I think, needs to be appreciating and enjoying the process of learning as opposed to assimilating stuff. Another stress comes from relationships and friendships. I mean, adolescents explore relationships, they have romantic relationships, they have friendships, they get dumped, they dump. Okay, it's that creates a lot of ups and downs, and that's all quite normal. And I dare to say it is necessary for adolescents to explore relationships and get an idea of what it's like to reject, but also to be rejected. You know, at the danger of sounding very cliche, these are some of the growing things. Some other challenges of today's adolescents: bullying. Okay, unfortunately, bullying is alive and kicking. Now we have cyberbullying, and we need to construct an environment at home where our kids can actually talk to us about bullying if they're being bullied. Okay, and depression. Again, unfortunately, even today, we are talking about kids and adolescents who have diagnosable depression. Okay, and some of them even have to take medication for that, although I'm a bit against it, taking medication at such an early age for depression. But the question is, why is it that we have an adolescent who's depressed? What's bringing that depression? What's the situation like at home? What is the relationship? What is the relationship of the parents like? Okay, that's very, very critical. How are they at school? What's their relationship like with their teacher? Okay. And the other very big one that we didn't have to go through when we were growing up is addiction to the internet and to screens. There is so much that I can tell you about this addiction. Okay. As a psychologist, I always give homework. None of my clients ever leaves any session without homework. And the homework that I give very frequently, not only to kids and adolescents, but also to adults, is to detox, and I'm using that word, to detox themselves from screens for an hour, 2 hours. I used to say for a weekend, but that's way too much. Okay, an hour or 2 hours. And kids, adolescents, adults actually go through withdrawal symptoms. They might experience anxiety. The idea of not looking at my screen is unfathomable. Okay, so there is that addiction to internet and screens. If we're looking at screens all the time, what happens? Our sleep tends to be disrupted because that activates an area of the brain that is activated when the sun comes up. Okay, so although our body might be completely depleted, we go to bed and it's difficult for us to fall asleep. Okay, drinking. Okay, smoking. Okay, weed, very common issues. Other substances. Okay, very important to talk to our kids, our adolescent kids, about these substances. Okay, rude behavior toward parents. Okay, it's not pleasant, but it's not all that abnormal. The kinds of things that kids will say to us simply because they're watching something on YouTube. They're watching a YouTuber who appears to be cool and blurbs out stuff that is completely inappropriate. And parents are a recipient of that. And we're thinking, hey, did you learn that from us? You didn't learn that from us. We don't talk like that. From where did you learn that? Okay. And eating disorders. Another very common challenge. Okay. That is why it's very important for parents to learn how to talk to their kids about food, their relationship with food. Okay, parents need to see what is my relationship with food. How do I talk about food? How do I talk about my body? Okay, now our kids will talk also to their peers about body image and food. They're also influenced by what they're watching online or on TV. Okay, so the parents are not the only influence on their kids, but something we definitely need to look at. And this takes us to parenting styles. Okay, and I want us to, for us parents, I want us to think, what is my parenting style? Okay, now this research was conducted in the 1970s and 80s by Aunt Pam Rind, and she came up with these 4 main parenting styles along two main dimensions: how controlling or demanding parents are. The other dimension is how emotionally close they are to their kids, supportive or unsupportive. And you have these 4 major parenting styles. For example, there are parents that are unsupportive, okay, and undemanding. Okay, so this is a parent that exerts no control on their kids and emotionally is absent. Okay, this is called permissive neglectful. Okay, neglecting parenting style. The relationship is rejecting or neglecting, the parent is uninvolved. These kids typically grow up and have they're drifters, okay, and very vulnerable to joining extremist groups, actually. The other type of parenting style that we have is the parent that is emotionally close and supportive to his or her kids, but doesn't exert any control. Okay, it's not demanding. Okay, the parent expects little of the child. Okay, this is called permissive indulgent parenting. Okay, relationship is indulgent, low in control attempts. So it's like, Mom, Dad, I want to have an iPhone 10. I'm talking about a 10-year-old. 20. Okay. Sure, my son, let me give it to you. Or I want to have ice cream before eating. Okay, here, take it. Okay. This type of parenting can also be the result of, if the child goes through some hardship, like could be divorce, for example. It's not uncommon for both parents to spoil the kid rotten. They might be very close to the kid, but still spoil the kid. These kids typically grow up having significant problems with self-control, always wanting stuff. Okay, and the other thing that might happen is that in relationships there might be a bit narcissistic. Okay, then we go to the next parenting style, the authoritarian parenting. The authoritarian parent is emotionally absent, but likes to exert absolute control on the kid. It's my way or the highway. Okay, so the relationship is controlling. That parent is very assertive. Communication is one way. I'm going to tell you what is right and what is wrong. I'm going to tell you who you are. Okay, and I'm not going to listen to you. I'm a very, very bad listener to you. I'm hypercritical, and you know what? You are never good enough. Okay, Mom, Dad, look, I got 97% on my exam. Huh? How come you didn't get 100? You lost 3 points. How come? Oh, you know what? You're careless. You could have gotten 100. Okay, as opposed to, wow, that's fantastic. I'm really, really proud of you. 97 is a pretty good grade. Okay. It's a parent that will communicate to the kid not unconditional love, but conditions of worth. For me to accept you, you need to do this, 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 and this. And even then, I'm not completely there for you. This is also the parent that tends to be, that can be physically punitive, extremely judgmental and critical. Okay, and these kids typically grow up having a lot of fear and anger in them, a lot of self-doubt. Okay. If you're, especially if you're a woman, you will have a lot of self-doubt. If you're a man, you might grow up and be the same model, get into a relationship and you become the abuser. Okay, very common. Now, ideally, we want to be authoritative parents. The authoritative parent is a parent that is emotionally close to his or her kids, but also with appropriate limits. But those limits can be negotiated. Okay, in other words, before imposing limits, I'm going to listen to my adolescent, to my kid or my adolescent, and then I'm going to impose those limits. But ultimately, I'm the authority. But I allow my kid to move freely within those limits. I'm also a good listener. I'm also communicating to my kid that you know, dude, I'm happy that you're my son. I really enjoy being with you. I really enjoy, and I can communicate this both verbally and non-verbally. Okay. And authoritative parenting is associated with higher self-esteem, higher success, and studying with the right spirit, or succeeding with the right spirit, as opposed to trying to accomplish something because I have fear of failure, not because I want to enjoy being successful. The other thing that I need to mention is that a moderating variable as to what kind of parent we are is actually stress. What research suggests is that when parents are more stressed out, there could be a shift to their parenting style, to whatever it might be, to authoritarian. Okay, that is why I always say that when we become parents, we have a greater responsibility to take care of ourselves and our relationship. Okay. Now, the parental relationship. Who raises the children? And the way they need to think about it is that the entity that raises the children is actually the parental relationship. It shouldn't be the one parent or the other. It's the parental relationship. That is why it's very important for the parents to take care of that relationship. Okay, even before having kids. Very often when I see couples, and this is interesting because not only when I see couples, it could be when in the United States, it was the same thing. Here in Cyprus, it's the same thing. Even when I see people online around the world, it's the same thing. I have parents many times who say, we wanted to have a kid because we believe that having a kid will bring us closer together. No, that's not how it happens. What research suggests is that unless the parental relationship is ready as it can be to have children, when children come, the parental relationship will actually deteriorate. Okay, that is why it's very important to be very mindful of what it means to have kids and what effect that's going to have on the relationship, and how important it is for the parents to take care of their relationship when they have kids. We have an additional responsibility to do that. What stresses are we experiencing individually, okay, and as a relationship? What stresses do we have? How do we cope with the stresses of life, the stresses of work? Okay, and self-care for the parents. How do we take care of ourselves? Okay, or does our identity become completely one thing? Okay, am I just a parent? Okay, and have I lost my professional identity? Do I only have a professional identity? I don't have a parental identity. Okay, so we really need to do that. And of course, as we mentioned before, care for the parental relationship. Having kids doesn't mean that our life is going to end. No, we go to a different chapter with some constraints. But it's very important for the parents, for example, every day to have routines. Could be a 5-minute routine, especially when the kids are young. I think we've all had the experience of sleeping on the couch while trying to watch something on TV. Okay, yeah, it's very important to put our kids to bed, for the kids to have regular routines, so that we can have regular routines. We also have single parent families that have additional stresses. And again, what research shows is that it might be better for kids to grow up in a single parent household, in a harmonious environment, than grow up in a quote unquote intact environment where the parents are physically together, but there is a lot of conflict. Okay, so the better predictor as to how well adjusted kids are is not necessarily whether the parents are together or not, but rather the presence or absence of conflict within the relationship. That is why many times when people say, "Oh, I want to stay in this relationship for the sake of my kids," let me give you the translation for that. Typically, what they say, "I'm so scared to venture out by myself that I'm using this understandable, valid excuse so that I'm not going to embrace the discomfort and pain of exiting this relationship. Okay, this is typically when you examine it a bit more, this is typically what happens. Okay, the other point that I want to make about single parent families is that still, even with single parent families, ideally it's the parental relationship that will continue to raise the children. That is why both parents, although they might be apart, have to be on the same page in raising their kids. Okay, but that's again, I could talk for hours about that. Interventions. What can we do? Number one, empathy. You will always hear me talk about empathy. I've reached a point in my life at which I really believe that in any kind of relationship, unless we have empathy, we don't really have a relationship. We might have the illusion of a relationship. So it's very important to communicate to our kids empathy, emotional, I feel for you, cognitive, I understand you, behavioral, I do things for you, I do things that you need. And also, I know what kind of love you need. Establish meaningful connections with adolescents. Okay, hone your listening skills. Am I a good listener to my children? Okay, do I really listen to my kids? Usually, we ask our kids to listen to us. Don't know if any one of you knows Cat Stevens, but who's actually half a Cypriot. Last week, I met someone who, one of his relatives in Cyprus, just a very random, interesting person. But there is a great song, Father and Son, that he sings. Actually play that song on my guitar for my sons. But there is a very interesting lyric that says, "From the moment I was born, I was ordered to listen. Now there is a way, and I know that I have to go away. I know I have to go." We always tell our kids to listen to us, but what we fail to see is for us to be good listeners to our kids. So, am I a good listener to my children? What's it like for my kids to have me as a dad? Okay. Speak at low volume. Okay, it's very easy for us. These all behaviors have become very automatic. We just lose it. It's very easy for us to do that. And of course, immediately that elicits another automatic response from our kids. But if we speak at low volume, we're actually more likely to be heard. Okay. Establish family routines, very important. What kind of routines do we do as a family? What do we like? And it has to be a routine that we all like. Okay, what do we do? Every Friday we order pizza and we watch Flash. Okay, every Sunday we go to the beach. Every day we sit down and we have a meal together and talk about stuff, or we play board games, or we go for walks, or it's very important for the family to find routines that everybody likes, things that everybody is looking forward to, as opposed to, I really don't want to do that, but I have to do it because everyone else wants to do it. No. Oh, by the way, this is also important for the parents, for the parental relationship, for the mom and the dad, to have routines, couple routines, things that we both enjoy doing. Okay. And acknowledge how oppressive homework can be. It's okay to say to our kids, son, my God, I know that you hate doing homework. I feel for you. I know. It was the same thing for me, and I'm even dyslexic. Okay, so it was very hard for me to do homework. Yeah, I can see how oppressive it can be. So maybe we can do it together. Let's make it fun. Okay, as fun as it can be. Okay, but I know that you don't like doing it. Okay, we can ask them about their day. How was your day? What did you do? Okay, hug them daily. It's okay to do that. Okay, a lot of people might have problem with that physical contact, but it's actually very good. We can have these very meaningful moments with our kids. It could be a 3-second hug. Okay, that does wonders. Okay, and essentially be positive and refuse to be negative. Refuse to be negative doesn't mean that we're not going to confront our kids, but the spirit with which we do it will be positive. We can be positive, even talking about very difficult things with our kids. Also, when we, and I'm talking about all of us, at some point we are human and we lose it, because it's very normal, when the context of losing it is actually a very positive one, whereby most of the time we're positive, we have fun, we do things together. But when we lose it, it's not toxic. Okay, we don't do no major damage is done. Send a positive message. We can send them a text message, for example, with something nice. Exercise together. You know, exercise is a fantastic thing to bond with someone else. Throw a party for a few friends. Watch a movie or a series together. Okay. Find an activity that everyone likes and does not involve money. Okay, that is very important. A lot of kids today, especially first world kids, expect to do things that involve money. Okay, do things that are out in nature. Okay, those are the things that kids actually remember the most, not things that we have to have money and buy things here and there. And okay, of course, we're going to do that sometimes, but we need to have those activities that are appreciated, that don't involve spending money. We can ask our kids to teach us something. Okay. Very recently, I got a lesson on Minecraft. Okay. Okay, great. And the other thing that is important is not to make comparisons with siblings or any other kid, whether it's relative or other school kid. Do not deprive them of their freedom. Okay, it's very important to allow our kids, our adolescents, to explore their identity. There is a theory of development by Erik Erikson, I think a great Swedish developmental psychologist. And what he's suggesting is that adolescence is a time of exploration. And it's very important for parents to allow for that exploration of their identity, okay, as opposed to imposing an identity on them. The parenting style that will impose an identity on an adolescent is authoritarian. We want to be authoritative parents, be emotionally close with limits, but allow our kids to explore their identity, who they are, what they like, what they don't like, okay, and be next to them. The other thing that is very important is tech curfew. Okay, we need to have limits when it comes to technology. Tablets, computers, okay, telephones, okay. A lot of adolescents right now really don't know how to communicate face to face. I find myself many times as a psychologist doing a bit of coaching to 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds who don't know how to ask someone out. They know how to send a message, but they don't know how to interact face to face. So we do a lot of role play. Okay. When they make mistakes, first listen to them. Don't rush to judge them. Don't rush to criticize them. Constant criticism destroys relationships. Okay, and not just parent-adolescent relationship, but also romantic relationships. The number one reason why relationships break down is actually criticism. We also need to give them evidence-based substantial praise. We can praise them for something, but something that is substantial, something that when we have evidence. Otherwise, our kid is going to come and say, oh, you're saying that because you're my parent. No, I'm saying that because you did this. Okay, I'm not just saying that out to you. And also remember the other day when, you screwed up, I listened to you, but, I also, told you that there are better ways of doing things. Okay. So now I'm telling you that I'm praising you, not because because I'm your parent as well. It's also my job to give you praise because I'm your parent, but it's also my job to give you substantial base and also give unconditional love. Our kids, our adolescents must not wonder about our affection to them. It has to be unconditional. They must also, ideally, they must not wonder about the security and quality of the parental relationship. the parents need to give to each other unconditional love. It's okay for parents to hug and kiss and do PDAs in front of the kids. And it's also okay for the parents to have a disagreement in front of the kids, as long as it's not, out of control, as long as it's, low-level disagreement, but they also make up in front of their kids. Okay, it's a good thing. We're actually showing to our children, our adolescent kids, what a realistic parental relationship is like.
Then can we have a small interruption here?
Sorry, we have a question?
Yeah, we're going to interrupt you here.
Yes.
To touch on a point that I think was in your previous slide, where you mentioned about the importance of continuing to talk to our adolescents and to hug our adolescents.
Yes.
The feeling here is that, I have a comment here from someone, and I wrote down something myself to ask you, is that I usually find that they are on a one-phrase, simple replies. Meaning that as our kids are young, the hugs and the "how was your day" meant we got a lot of information. All of a sudden we go into adolescence, and our questions no longer are sentences, they're fine, okay, this type of thing. So we wanted a bit of your input on this to help our audience understand what can we do when we're getting not the response that we would like. So parents are trying to keep the communication channels open, but what they're getting back actually from their adolescents is little one-word answers.
Well, we need to think about it as, well, first of all, they're gonna get big. It's like, oh, you're gonna hug me? Okay, I'm fine. Okay, you know what? Yeah, that's normal. We're not going to, oh my God, how come you're not hugging me? You're not behaving as predicted. No, but we will always find that window of opportunity when they're going to be more receptive to that. Okay, it might not be something that's going to happen every day. It might be happening that's going to happen occasionally. Okay, the other thing that we need to think about is that we're actually making an investment for the future. Okay, for the following day, for the following month, for next year, for years from now, because kids will remember that, and at some point they will come and might want to hug us. My other suggestion is that this is something that needs to start from an early age. We don't wait till they become adolescents to do that. Okay, and sometimes I joke with my sons, because now they're pre-adult. Actually, I think one of them is definitely adolescent, and I tell them, hey, dudes, when you grow older, are you gonna still let me tuck you in bed? Are you gonna still let me hug you? Or are you gonna just kick me away and say, oh, Dad, move away? Okay, okay. Some of them tell, no, we will. Okay, good. So
maybe one answer to the question is to do with the timing of maybe when you ask your questions. And just to add that on to that, to answer one of our questions, at bedtime, this is my personal mum contribution, I find that often when it's bedtime, if I ask a question that I maybe asked earlier in the day, I'm more likely to get a more detailed answer to do with feeling, how they actually felt about something, as opposed to during the day when I've just literally walked in through the door from work, and I might say, how was your day? And there often it will be the kind of simple words and the so maybe thinking about maybe when we ask, I don't know, when we ask certain things.
Sure, it could be part of the routine. Okay, this could be part of the routines, and also these need to be, for this to work, they have to be within the context of overall a very positive household atmosphere, and overall very positive relationships. Okay, if there is toxicity, these things are not going to work. So we go back to the quality of the parental relationship, the quality of the relationship with each parent to each and every kid. And also, maybe and also if it's something that starts from childhood, it can carry through adolescence. Okay, but it might not work every single time. Okay, so that is why we must not take it personally, which is another thing. Oh, sorry, I made another typo. Sorry, I make typos. I'm dyslexic too. So we have to be parents and friends, but ultimately we are the authority. Spend time together one-on-one. Very important to do this from childhood and get to know them. Okay, our kids want to be known, and we also need to want to be known to them. Maintain high standards and also trust our kids. Okay, have screen-free family meals. This is terribly important. We have to switch those damn things off, and that has to be one of those family rules. In the dinner table, we don't have screens. Okay, we talk to each other and maintain good communication. Good communication will not always be there, but we need to have the potential for good communication. Okay, encourage self-care of adolescents. Okay, if we raise them with fear of punishment, they're going to lie to us more to protect themselves. Okay, and also every mistake is an opportunity to connect. When our kids, our adolescents make a mistake, they're vulnerable. So we have greater responsibility to protect them from our wrath, from our anger. We have to see it from their perspective. We go back to this idea of empathy. Do not humiliate, okay? Because we have, as parents, we have a lot of power over our kids. Communicate unconditional love and also ask this question to ourselves. What's it like for my kid to have me as a parent? And let me end with this quote. Our aim is not to prove that we are right and make our kids admit they're wrong. Our goal is to connect emotionally with them. That is number one goal, and that constructs the context for successing whatever it is they want to do. Okay, because sometimes we want them to admit that they're wrong. Okay, I admit my mistakes. That's humiliating. What does that mean? I mean, that takes us nowhere. Okay, I dare to say that is even toxic and counterproductive. Okay, so again, I just skimmed. I think we just skimmed the surface. I'm ending with a beautiful painting by Edvard Munch, which I like a lot. It's called Sunrise, and I'm open to any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Andrea, for that. That was an interesting point made at the end, actually, because I'm imagining that by that time they already know they've made a mistake. So I guess by forcing them to actually admit or reinforce, yes, I made a mistake, I will agree with you there that it has absolutely no purpose at that stage. Mm-hmm. So a very interesting point there. So any questions, please write them quickly in the chat. I want to ask one thing of Andrea. Quite near the beginning of the presentation, I heard something which I think often does worry people. You said that how our kids are as adolescents does not mean that this is how they will be when they become adults. I thought this was very interesting from the point of view that when our kids do things as adolescents, even before they're adolescents, that we may perhaps think, that's not a nice thing to do, or that's not a nice thing. I think we do often worry, oh my God, is he going to become a selfish adult? Is he going to be a human being who does this, or is he going to do that? I know I do it, that's why I'm saying it.
Well, welcome to the club.
So that was very interesting to hear that, and I'm wondering if you had anything else to add on that as to how can we as parents think, okay, so they're acting selfishly, but that doesn't mean, it could even be amongst themselves, because often I think within siblings, and I've got two boys as well, so I see it a lot, and I think, oh my God, that's not a nice way to be to a brother.
Oh yeah.
And it does worry parents, I think, in that, are they going to be like this as adults?
It's so part of exploration. Point. But it's part of exploration. Exploring during adolescence, you're exploring possible selves. There is this self, this self, this self, and I'm exploring and finding out what I like, and what I don't like. Okay, it's very important for parents to communicate unconditional acceptance to the kids and not conditions of worth. Okay, if we communicate unconditional acceptance, we always value our kid, and our kid feels that. Okay, so yeah, they're going to explore, possible selves. Okay, this is a self that did a bad thing, and I screwed this up, and oh my God, I hurt my parents. And parents, oh my God, you really did that? Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, they're learning how to be, but they're learning how not to be. Okay.
Thank
Now,
you for
do we need,
that, Andrea.
sorry?
I said thank you for that.
Yeah, ultimately our job is to, give them guidance within the context of unconditional acceptance.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question for you. What is the best way to unspoil a spoiled kid after a divorce?
After a divorce.
I think as simple as we can do, I imagine there's a lot that could be said around this topic, but let's have a little bit of your expertise on that.
It's very important for both parents to be on the same page. One mistake that divorced parents make, a lot of them make, they might fight for the affection of the kid by giving the kid stuff, okay? Or many times one parent is gonna do that and the other parent is not gonna do that. And the kid can become very, very manipulative and get even more spoiled. I would say one of the best things to do is to spend one-on-one time. Now, let me just give a parenthesis. We don't have control over what the other parent does. We only have control what we do with our kid. And ideally, we need to find routines that don't involve stuff. Okay, that don't involve buying things. Okay, essentially, those are the kinds of things that kids need. Spend time, one-on-one time, and help the child understand what success is. Okay, and success is not necessarily having stuff. Okay.
So basically there, I guess the parent who is not the one spoiling, again, will look at the more communicative way. So that slowly the adolescent actually can distinguish for themselves what it means to have things, perhaps from one parent, but from the other parent, I've got the emotional side, the emotional support.
Bravo. The other thing I need to mention, the other thing I need to mention is that it's not something that's gonna happen overnight.
No.
It can be very disheartening for the parents who wants to get close and unspoil a very spoiled kid. It's going to take time. So we have to get used to failures within quotes. Although it's not a failure, it's more like we need to think about it as investment for the future. I'm doing all my efforts. I'm doing all that I'm supposed to do to connect with my kid, but it's not going to happen the way that I want it to happen tomorrow. I might get a lot of rejection before I get there, but you know what? You will get there. I always say one phrase that I always say that it has been good for me. I always say, I refuse to have unhealthy interactions with anybody, whether it's my wife, my kids, my colleague, my whoever. Okay. And what needs to guide us is our conceptualization of what it means to be healthy and what a healthy relationship is with our child. We need to conceptualize that and stick to that, and ultimately it will work.
So persevere with the correct way of doing things and using open channels of communication.
Yes,
I guess is the answer to our listener on that one.
Yeah, be good listeners. Don't come up with rational arguments as to why someone needs to feel a particular way. It never works. It's like I'm telling you, don't stress out. Wow, my stress is gone. Thank you so much. How come I didn't think about it? Yeah, I mean, it's all these formulas that we come up with to give pep talks to our kids, or to make an argument with our spouse or a friend or a colleague or whoever. It never works.
Absolutely. So we have any more last questions before we call it an evening? Okay, so I think we don't have any more questions. I would like to say a big thank you to everybody who was with us today. I know some of you have actually been with us, I think, for probably the whole of the 7 topics we've covered in this series. So thank you very much for joining us. A big thank you to Andreas again for joining us for his second presentation. And watch this space for the future. From our side, we've enjoyed doing some different type of topics with you all. Feel free to get in touch, make suggestions, and we hope to be in a position to put something together for you again in the future. Thank you very much to everybody, and a very good night.